Yes, welcome to our second network meeting of this year on energy. So this does follow last year's session on decarbonisation. So I'm going to mention that, but we have already run one session on energy already. So we're trying to find a different angle here. So this is our agenda. So there'll be an update from me on the network and the offers that we've got going. And then we've got two people from Suffolk County Council. We've got Linda Hearn, who's here talking about Solar Up, which is the council's solar panel project. And then we've got Mark Dale, who is talking about energy tips for schools. We've got Nige joining us again for tips on reducing energy emissions and just talking about climate action advisors and how they can support you from Let's Go Zero. And then we were due to have Rebecca Stacey join us, who's the schools coordinator from the Carbon Literacy Project. Unfortunately, Rebecca has come down not feeling well, so she won't be here, but I do have an opportunity that you might be interested from the Carbon Literacy Project, so I'll mention that. And then we should have some breakout rooms and have an opportunity to chat. Okay, please do ask any questions on the chat if you can. Hopefully Louise is getting that working, so you will be able to talk for the breakout rooms. But if you have any queries in the meantime, please message on the chat. Louise will also be posting links for the different things that we talk about into the chat, so keep an eye on that. So just a reminder for anyone who's new to the network, it's run by me, Rebecca Elson-Haynes. I'm the school sustainability lead. That's my email address. And basically I run the network and I also coordinate some other projects to support schools, mainly secondary schools. But Louisa is the school sustainability support officer, so she supports me with my work, but she also helps run the primary school program that we have called Our Schools, Our World. And that's quite an intensive whole school program that we're working with 23 schools this year on. So moving on. So just some updates from us. I just wanted to let you know that the Sustainability in Education Conference, we've pretty much firmed up the agenda now. So I just wanted to showcase some of the organisations that are involved. So these are the speakers and the workshop leads. There will be additional organisations involved in the exhibition side of things. But as you can see, we've got some fantastic organisations coming. It's being hosted at the Food Museum in Stowmarket, which is a really lovely venue, and definitely if you've not been there with your students, it's a fantastic place to visit. They've got a lovely school dinners exhibition on over the next year or so, and they've got lambs, they've got an orchard, they've got big exhibitions, so definitely worth a visit. And I just wanted to highlight that there's an early bird discount at the moment, so the conference is only £35 per individual if you sign up in the next few months. So please consider it. I also wanted to flash up the agenda. I did show this last time, but we've had a few more things confirmed on there. So we've got Alison Kitson from the University College London, who is the head of Sustainability and Education Department there. And we've also, the Department of Education are probably coming, and they're going to give an update on the curriculum and assessment review that was just published. So lots of interesting things going on there, and well worth £35 in my opinion. And I also wanted to highlight our energy audit project. So I know I've been talking about this since since the network started, but that contract with Groundwork is coming to an end. So we're trying to book in as many of those site visits before Christmas as we can, because the contract ends at the end of February. So if you know anybody in a secondary school that has not had a free energy audit, please do contact them. We've got about we've done 50% of schools, but we really would like to do as many as possible before that contract ends. So please do get in touch. And just an update on the website. I don't know how I'm going to do this very quickly, so let me just try and reshare with you. Louise, have you managed to get the things unmuted yet?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Ah, fab. Okay, one sec. I'm just. Oh, sorry. Bear with me. I just wanted to update the primary schools, the Our Schools, Our World schools, because I wanted to give you a little flash up of, I mean, obviously there's going to be the main website and there's going to be a lot of kind of support on there, but the the login area for Our Schools, Our World is kind of coming together. So I just thought I would show you and also just mention it because we are hoping to recruit another cohort next academic year. So this is just kind of the welcome page, and we've got all the resources kind of in a nice, easy to access. You don't have to keep putting in a password. So if we went to key topic resources, you know, we've got them all down under the topics like biodiversity, waste and consumption, etc. And we've also got on there staff training resources. So all the videos that you need to use, oh, bear with me, for your staff training are also on there. So I just thought, give you a sneak peek. Hopefully it'll be a lot easier to use than what you've been using. And if anyone else is interested in the program, obviously you get these resources free if you engage with it. So just a bit of a share, and I will go back to the PowerPoint. Louisa, do you know if anyone's able to ask questions on the chat?
I think the chat's enabled. I haven't had any questions yet. So if anyone wants to test the chat by saying hello or good evening. Ah, yes, Verity's written. Yeah, the chat is accessible. Thanks, Verity and Julia and Catherine.
Lovely. Okay, great. All right. So just before I talk through some other tools that are available for support for energy, and then hand over to Linda for our first presentation, I just wanted to remind everyone about the term scope emissions, and that's just in terms of energy and thinking about your decarbonisation plans, but also communicating with students. It's worth remembering that carbon emissions fall into three categories. There's your scope 1. So those are any emissions that are generated by running the school site. So that's direct use of fossil fuels in things like your school vehicles. And then there's scope 2, which are emissions that are generated by buying in electricity, heat, and electricity for EVs. So then it's not fuels directly used on site, but obviously they are burnt somewhere in order to provide the electricity that you use. And then there's scope 3 emissions, and scope 3 emissions kind of get left out sometimes just because they're not immediately obvious, but they're generated by assets not directly owned or controlled by the schools, and it includes things like, you know, what you're purchasing, who you're purchasing them from, and how those companies produce those products, how you handle waste, what kind of investments and banking system that your school uses, all of your pupils' commutes and your staff commutes, which, you know, doesn't feel immediately something you like something you can control, but obviously there are actions that you can take to try and change behaviours. There's your school trips and trips policies. Something that's not on here as well is kind of school uniform and school uniform policy. So I just wanted to highlight those scope emissions, and just if you are thinking about writing your climate action plans, if you haven't already, maybe thinking about those different scopes when you put your plan together. Okay, so just before I hand over to Linda, I'm going to talk about some useful tools that are out there. So one is our previous webinar on decarbonisation. So we can make this link available when I send out the next newsletter, just to remind you that we did have Count Your Carbon come and present. So there's a 15-minute kind of talk from Louise Robson, who talks through the tool, how to use it. It's a free carbon calculator specifically designed for schools. And Let's Go Zero, I know, are very keen on schools to use it. And basically the idea is that you can use it, you should aim to use it once a year to show how you're addressing carbon emissions. And then Energy Sparks is again a really useful tool. Unfortunately, it's not free, but it is a way of you reducing carbon emissions, and therefore reducing costs to your school. It provides kind of real-time data for you or your students to engage with that and look at energy behaviour change. So well worth a looking at that previous webinar. On that recording, there's also a case study from Eastern Multi Academy Trust. So they show the cost savings and the carbon savings that they've made by using Energy Sparks. And then I'm just going to hand over to Louisa to talk about thermal imaging cameras that are available from Sustainable Suffolk, which is an organisation that work on behalf of all of Suffolk's councils and public sector organisations. So handing over to you, Louisa.
Thanks, Becca. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Yes, so this is a project that some of you might already be familiar with. I think it's been running for a couple of winters, and it involves loaning out thermal imaging cameras so people can actually run an independent assessment of their home to check energy efficiency and where heat is being lost. And the cameras are sent to hubs around the county so people can access them locally. And this project has just been opened up to schools. So if it's of interest to get a thermal image of your school, perhaps for your school operational staff, or also for use with your students, if you think that might be of interest in a lesson for them to investigate where there might be energy inefficiency in terms of losing heating. They are available to book. I'll shortly put the link in the chat. I have had a quick look and they are quite booked at the moment. So we've got a couple of hubs there's one in Woodbridge, one in Liston, near Sudbury, one in East Bergholt, Halesworth and Ixworth. If none of those hubs are close to you, we do have a few of those cameras available here in Ipswich based at Endeavour House. So if you go on the booking website and they're all booked out or there's not one local to you, please do get in touch with us via the Sussan, the network email address, and we'll see if we can get one out to you. But just to let you know, the way the cameras work is they attach to a mobile phone or a tablet. So you will need to have one of those available as well to make the cameras work. But they do produce some really striking, really interesting visuals that your students might find really engaging.
Thank you, Louisa. Okay, great. Yeah, so just a new opportunity for you. Let's just go to the next slide. Is that working? Yes, here we go. I know I mentioned it already, but yeah, Count Your Carbon Calculator. They have got a lovely new fancy website with a really nice video explaining the tool and showing you how it works. So I don't know if you could put that link in the chat, Louisa. But yeah, I would check that out if you haven't engaged with it already. And I don't know if Nigel's going to talk about this, but they have released a new tool called the Playground. So basically, if your school goes ahead and does your carbon calculation, the Playground program lets your students kind of use that carbon calculator, and they can play around with it and look at ways that the school can reduce emissions. And it's just a really nice, engaging tool. And you can see on the video on the website how it's used, and there's a lovely teacher delivery guide as well. So well worth checking out. And I'm sorry, Nigel, if I've stolen this from you, but this is the 12 Days of Sustainable Schools Christmas, and I thought it was just quite timely that we're just going into December next week. There's some lovely activities and things that you can think about in the build up to Christmas. I also think there's a sign up, isn't there, Nigel? I might be wrong. A sign up for a 5-day email journey to write a climate action plan for anyone who's kind of struggling to get started. I don't know if you want to come in on that, Nigel. Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't.
Ah, rubbish. Okay. I think
that'll be from the central team. So that'll be a centrally run one. So there'll be people all across the country that I think can sign up for that one.
Great. So, yeah. What I'll do is I'll find the link that I was sent, and I will put it in the follow-up email that comes out with this recording. But yeah, might be useful for those that want to get started. Okay, and I think that's it from me. So thanks very much for listening to that. And I'm going to hand over to Linda, who is in charge of the Solar Up project. Linda, over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I've already sent Rebecca my slides. So I'm going to do the old-fashioned next slide, please thing. So if you could flash up my first slide for me, please. So yes, I'm Linda Hearn. I'm a project manager at Suffolk County Council, and I'm leading the project which we're calling Solar Up. We've given it a title and a logo so that it distinguishes it from other solar projects that we know are out there and available to schools. So if you could have the next slide. So what is solar all about? Well, it's about helping you reduce your carbon footprint and your energy bills. So what we would ask is that you host solar panels on your roof, and then you can purchase the energy that they produce at discounted rates compared to your current electricity supplier. We're also going to be benefiting from 2 years access to education resources, and there's no capital investment required with this programme because it's being funded by Suffolk's public sector organisations as part of the Suffolk Climate Emergency Plan. So just going to a little bit more detail about those things. So if I go to the next slide. Thank you. So what are the benefits? Well, we're hoping this will help put the action into your climate action plan. So by having solar panels on your roof, you will use solar energy rather than energy directly from the grid. And you can engage your students in learning about climate change. And with the membership to Energy Sparks, there's a huge amount of resources there which will get your students engaged. So if I could have the next slide.
Sorry, I don't know if you'll mention this later, but in terms of Energy Sparks, are you going to talk about if they're already members of Energy
Yes.
Sparks? Yeah, okay,
yes,
cool.
I am.
Oh, sorry.
So just going to talk about the specific financial benefits. So as I said, we know that not all schools have got the capital to actually purchase their solar panels outright. So this scheme has got no financial outlay. So you're not going to own them. There'll be no maintenance costs because we're using the word hosting, so sort of almost borrowing the solar panels. And by using the solar energy, you'll get 20% discount compared to your electricity supplier, and we will review that annually. So for the lifetime of the agreement, which will be 25 years, that's not, and that sounds like an awfully long time, but that's a standard sort of length of time for these sorts of agreements. So over the whole 25 years, however much the prices of electricity fluctuate, you will be making savings. And then at the end of those 25 years, full ownership of those panels passes to the school if you want them to, and then all the energy that's generated from then on will be free to the school. And we know that the panels that are currently being fitted are still going to be reasonably efficient in 25 years' time. So if I could have the next slide, please. So I was just trying to sort of give you a feel for how the actual billing works. So at the moment, when you switch on any appliance, I've just put a picture of a lamp there, you're drawing energy from the grid that gets metered, and you get a bill from your energy supplier for that energy that you've used. So if you can just do me a click, please. So if you have solar panels, if you switch something on, then it could be, if the sun is out, that you're drawing power from your solar panels. That is also being metered in the background, and we know how much energy they're generating and how much you're using. And so every quarter you'll also receive a bill from us for the amount of energy that you've used from the solar panels. So you're not actually changing the amount of power that you're using, but you are splitting that. So you're using less power from the grid, more power from the solar, and you'll get two bills, but they'll be at two different rates. One is discounted. So I could have the next slide, please. So if you're interested and you think you might be interested in this, how do you get started? Well, what we want to do is we want to give you information that is relevant to you. So we would like to send out our technical consultants so that they can work with your data, and they will find out the optimum number of panels that work for you and your site. And then they can give you an estimate of the energy that they could produce and how much your school could save. And it gives you an opportunity to ask questions directly to our technical consultant. And at the end of that, you'll receive a report that you can use that will help you make some decisions. So if I could have the next slide, please. So if you want to know more, we would like you to register your interest. You don't have to make a decision now. You're not going to be committed if you have a consultant come round, but we just want to give you the information to help you. So the email address is there. My phone number is there. We're going to be running a webinar soon. And at the moment, high schools are being given priority because the budget that we have was drawn up on the basis of helping all high schools. But we are going to be extending this because we want to use the fund as fully as we can. We're going to start extending that to larger primary schools unless we get more high schools interested. So even if you think, oh, I don't want to do it right now, but maybe in 6 months' time or a year, I might be interested, then please get in touch. So I could have the last slide, please. So you can find more information on the Sustainable Suffolk site. You can attend our webinar. I did actually send some renewed slides. It's going to be the 8th of January. You can ask to have a site visit with our technical experts. And if you have any questions, please ask, because we want to build this webinar from the feedback and the questions that you may have. So we don't know what you don't know, and we want to try and answer as many questions as we can in that webinar after Christmas. So if you've got any immediate questions, please pop them in the chat and I'll try and answer them before I disappear. Yes, we are going to be sharing the slides, and I'll share the links as well. That was probably just over 5 minutes, Rebecca. Back to you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks so much. Yeah, apologies. I got the wrong slides. I'll try and update the slides before we send them out. Just a reminder, the slides come out in the newsletter. The newsletter will be coming out before Christmas. We do send the recording as soon as possible after the meeting, but yeah, the slides will be on the newsletter.
And I just remembered that you did ask if anybody had already had Energy Sparks membership. If you agree to have solar panels, you can have a mix and match approach to the membership to Energy Sparks, because they will do some workshops as well. So you can either have 2 years membership for free, or you can have workshops for free, or you can have 1 year's membership and a workshop. So you know, whatever suits your school to get the most out of Energy Sparks as you possibly can.
Fantastic. Thanks, Linda. Great. Yeah, please do ask
Thanks
any
for
questions
listening.
on the chat. I'm going to hand over now to Mark Dale from Suffolk County Council, who's here to talk about some energy saving tips. So I'm going to stop sharing and let you share, Mark.
All right, just sharing slides now, bear with me. Okay, hopefully everyone can see them.
Great. Yep.
Yep, okay. Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Dale. I'm the Carbon Reduction Manager within Corporate Property at Suffolk County Council. The main part of my role is, I joined the council a little about 4 years ago. Prior to that, I worked at Virtus looking after energy contracts for a number of schools as well. So the main thing with my roles when I came in 4 years ago, I work alongside another colleague within corporate property. We have about 100 properties across the estate, and our remit was you have an investment fund, get these schools, get these sites to net zero. So that was the target. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we were doing, and then go on to some of the advice and some of the things we did and how that might be relevant to schools and what they can look at. A lot of this, some of you are probably already looking at, I'd imagine. So, first slide, a little bit of a graph showing what we've done on the corporate estate at Suffolk County Council. Black line is the historic footprint, red line is the carbon emissions if we hadn't done anything. You'll see a dotted green line going all the way down towards zero. So that was the target we drew up in our kind of action plan. And the solid green line is how we've done today. And there's a series of things we've done. So we looked at BMS is basically a posh word for controls. It's just for larger buildings. Installing lots of solar, insulating everything we can, and then looking towards renewable heating. District heating is another thing we're looking at. So just gives a sense of what we've done to date. Quite proud that we've managed to achieve a 38% reduction in our carbon emissions across the 100 buildings. The large majority of that was from energy savings, and a good proportion was on our largest building. So the most successful thing has been controls and time of day usage. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So I'm going to go on to the next slide, hopefully. So here's a few pretty pictures of stuff we've done. So as you can see, we've done lots of solar. We have done lots within the buildings as well. They just don't quite make for as good pictures. Also down at the bottom, we look after battery storage containers, a number of our sites. This was before the technology got really small. So this was one of the first grade ones down at the Hold, using reused batteries, which is also a good story for carbon emissions. So reused electric vehicle batteries. And bottom right hand side, we've got a slide just showing our smart controls. So this is from Endeavour House, a number of the bigger buildings. What we've been doing is trying to trim energy usage within the buildings. So so that's a bit of what we've done so far. What I've come to kind of talk about is just advice on what schools can look at in terms of reducing their utility emissions. So whilst a lot of the talk on the previous slides was about the bigger buildings and things we've done, we do have a number of smaller buildings across the state, so we've applied similar techniques to look at. The most important thing is looking at your cost and usage. So you can't know what can be achieved, same with emissions as well, without looking back at performance historically. And then also importantly, look at what the school can do to influence things on site. Knowing where that line is, what is possible now, what might be possible in the future. One of the ways you can do this is looking at your energy data and comparing it to activity during the school. So just trying to look at where things might be going wrong or where things can be changed, just to get a more efficient picture. And last point is benchmarking. So once you've gathered all your data together, knowing exactly how the school is performing, whether it be with your carbon emissions, with any sort, looking at similar schools within the trust or across the authority estates, and looking what the kind of standard is and what the difference it can be if you were able to achieve that. What is the step change that would need to happen? Okay. So the reason I'm saying gather all the data together and the time of usage is because it's knowing that value. One of the stark pieces of information, you probably hear this graph shows energy cost. This is actually on the corporate estate. I've taken the numbers off on the left hand side, but it was fairly flat before a massive spike that happened in the meantime. This was the energy crisis that happened in 2022. The black line, or the blue line, is where we would have been if we hadn't been doing anything. The orange line is then what we've achieved since. We're currently 24, 25, so we're about here on the graph. Reason I'm showing this graph is if a similar graph could be plotted against a school, is just showing what the impact of the change can be in financial terms. So I appreciate schools don't have much budget to spend, and there's more important things perhaps to spend it on. But then I'm also saying that if there's any things that can be done, it's showing the advantage of that change. So I think that one of the key takeaways from this particular slide, and what I wanted to impress on all schools, is that sadly energy costs are rising. So when assessing kind of the impacts of any particular change or any investment needed within the building, it's looking at a picture over the next five years, next 10 years, next 15 years, rather than kind of the immediate budgets, if possible. Okay, so on to the next slide. So when I was talking about knowing your energy budgets, one of the key aspects of that is looking at your bills, particularly your electricity bills. They're not very exciting things, so I apologise in advance. But the way electricity providers charge their usage is changing all the time. So it's important to stay on top of time of usage, time of day usage, and kind of how things change. Ask questions wherever possible. I won't go into it in minute detail, but it's just being aware that there's certain things that can be done to kind of reduce costs if things haven't been checked on by your energy provider. So it's always worth checking in regularly with whoever is contracting your energy to say, my availability charge, for example, this is like a mobile phone data charge, is this set at the right level? Because if you're paying for 80 units of availability charge and you don't need all of them, that's £177 you're spending every month. Or if you're going over your usage, similar to mobile phone data, you could be getting penalty charges within that respect. There are no quick wins necessarily with this, but then it's also worth just keeping an eye on, because it's important to fix anything that's gone wrong and hasn't been looked after. So yeah, moving on. So when I was talking about energy data, if you have smart meters, you should have really granular energy data available, and this could be an activity that could be within a science or a maths classroom, depending on kind of the ability of the students involved as well. But so using Excel, you can have a look at spreadsheet data, looking at energy usage. So this is the top left here. So this is actually listed by individual day. This is midnight, so you can see there's some yellow line numbers here, which signifying there's usage out of hours. So it's looking and identifying where things have gone wrong. On the top right hand side is basically an averaged out version of this over a month, and you can see there's some out of hours trails where I'm circling my mouse here. So those immediately start off that conversation for immediate usage. What has gone wrong here? It might be to a building maintenance provider saying something's gone wrong out of hours. So it's just kind of keeping that extra set of eyes on it. For those that prefer the graphical format, I've got it down the bottom here. So orange is the normal energy usage throughout the day. On the blue line, you can see out of hours, they're using an increased amount of electricity, and that is significant cost. So on this particular occasion, there was a pump left on for a few days, and it costs an awful lot of money. So if things go unchecked, there's money and there's carbon emissions achieved as a result. Bottom right hand side, for those that enjoy statistics, our view is basically just a scatter graph showing variables. This one is based on gas usage versus outside temperature. So the colder it gets along to the right hand side, how much gas usage you've got, it plots the two against one another. And essentially it's showing that particular building, the orange dots are after, the blue dots were before. So afterwards, no matter how far to the right you get in terms of how cold it is, at least half of the gas is being used as previously. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about some of the checks you could do in terms of data and getting to know your energy bills and your usage. Some of these practical checks that can be done around the school. Lots of these things are done regularly within schools, I appreciate. Some of this could be made into a learning exercise or a project within the school. So going around and assessing your heat emitters, so your radiators, versus how the space is used. Have you got lots of heat pouring into areas you're not particularly using, and other areas where there's not sufficient radiators? The cost of those changes might actually be minimal versus the comfort and the energy savings. Checking your radiator settings as well is another thing. Just like making sure they're appropriate. Radiator locks. So I know we've got a particular problem within the council sometimes where people go into a space where there's temperature controls. People can turn it up going, this room's a bit cold. They leave the room 20 minutes later and leave the setting on very, very high. So a good idea, so for quite a cheap price, you can buy something to lock on the radiator, TRV valves basically, to lock it at a standard temperature, so it reduces over usage and keeps it at a stable temperature for everyone, so it's not too cold, not too hot, because the other downside is some people can come in and turn it down as well. Okay, next one, areas of heat loss. I think everyone's seen that sort of thing. We do have a thermal camera available as well. If anyone did need to borrow that for a particular occasion, we can come out to site and have a look. Down the bottom hand side, I'm starting to waffle a bit, so apologies. We've got age of boiler, age of heating controls, and age of any operation. So look around the building, what is old, trying to assess the impact of potential upgrades to that. I would always say, so our quick wins have been heating controls. Every winter or before the winter starts, it's worth getting somebody to come in, just check your set points are at appropriate level, so what temperatures you're warming to, and checking that the times are all set right, because they can easily fall out of function. Final bottom right hand corner, which arguably should have been front and center. I truly believe that every school at the moment should be looking at, is there roof space possible to install solar? Electricity prices are only going one way over the next few years. It's certainly a worthwhile investment where costs can be returned. So if there's capital investment, which is a very big ask, I appreciate, costs can be returned within 5 years, and over 10 years, There are there is cost avoidance there, which can go towards all sorts of other measures I'm sure people would rather be spending money on in schools. So it's certainly a worthwhile investment. There are also, as you've heard already from Linda, there's plenty of schemes out there. So the county council has one, and there's various other ones to look into in terms of hosting that solar on your roof and getting the advantage of reduced energy bills. I see it all too often where people say that costs are a lot more are reduced from where they were a couple of years ago, but it's only been the kind of the calm, it's been the eye of the storm, so to speak. It's going to kind of carry on over the next few years, sadly. Okay, so final takeaway.
Sorry,
Yep.
Mark. Can I just go in on the solar thing? I just wanted to raise that there is a lot of deals out there,
Yep.
and there is a lot of fine print. So regardless, obviously we've introduced Solar Up, but regardless of what deal you choose, it is worth really looking at what kind of deal that you've got going forward. I just want to say that because there have been instances where schools have got in a pickle because they have the fine print has meant that they can pay regardless of whether the panels are producing solar energy, for example. Now the DFE are trying to stop that from happening, but I think it's worth noting that there are a lot of companies that it's worth really doing your research.
It is a very, very good point. So it is actually for me the bottom panel on the below slide.
Sorry.
Oh, that's not a problem at all. It's definitely worth saying. So in terms of the final slide, be the energy champion. This is partly why I'm looking at kind of what's the value in energy savings. There is no magic answer. It takes lots of patience, lots of hard work, lots of wrong avenues, but it does take someone being very, very persistent, and I truly believe it's worthwhile. Second one is seek impartial advice, resource and support. Part of my role is to offer help to schools wherever I can, and just across the council if anyone needs any advice. Sadly, I'm considered what's a subject matter expert within these things. Someone called me that the other day. I'm going, oh blimey. And the last thing is beware the guaranteed cost saving. So there was the mention of solar previously. The DFE is currently I don't know what the latest advice is, but quite rightly, there's been some concern about a number of schemes previously offering out rent-a-roof spaces is a common phrase, and this is probably why the county council is looking to offer a scheme and to support, is to make sure that there's not kind of private companies coming in trying to offer things that aren't suitable for the end user. So it's always worth checking the detail. We also have seen over the years plenty of what's called an energy broker out there going, sign with us, we can get you a cheaper deal. Sadly, the reason energy prices is going up is not because of the kind of the wholesale element of the bill. It's because of things that you can't control. The cheapest way to reduce your energy bills is by reducing your energy usage. There's not a great deal of procurement strategy that can be used to so I'm always very, when someone goes, oh, I can guarantee you 20% saving, I'd say just buyer beware and kind of check the details. I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm just saying kind of check what they mean in terms of that phrases. Another common one we have seen is these magic products that you can add to your boiler or to your heating system that will guarantee all sorts of savings, and things have been sold into various places. And I think it's just always be diligent and ask lots of people about that advice, because it's showing evidence of where it's actually worked, and because sometimes they sell a product and there's a saving and you're kind of going, well, was that as a result of that product, or was that just kind of what you would call a natural saving? Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing now because I feel like I've waffled a little bit there. So, but last thing to mention, myself and my colleague, we do like to come out and visit schools, and we can offer desktop support. So looking at rooftop spaces, we can have a quick look through your energy data. So I can't promise an immediate response, but then we are quite happy to try and support for those that are really keen and interested to see what they can achieve at the school. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Mark. I hope everyone found that useful. And Mark, are you happy for us to share your email address with the people
Yeah,
who've registered for the webinar?
happy for my email address to be shared, and I'll share some slides as well. I can obviously do introductions if I'm not the most appropriate person. I'm not always very quick to respond, so I apologise if I'm not in advance, but I do intend to get back to people relatively quickly.
Lovely. Okay, I think, Linda, if you are still on the call, we have another question about solar, or Mark, you might want to answer that one. But I am going to hand over to Nigel now, if that's okay.
Just to reassure you, Rebecca, I am answering the queries about solar as we go along, so don't worry.
Oh, thanks. I think this is a general one rather than just about solar up, but I think we've had a conversation about it, so hopefully you can answer that one.
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye.
Thanks. Over to you, Nigel. How are you doing? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I think you're muted.
Yeah. See that? Brilliant. No, that's not working. Come on, there we go. Brilliant. Yes, so I'm going to, well, hello everybody. I'm going to talk to you a bit about some of those scope 3 things that you can do to reduce the scope 3 emissions. Touch on a couple of things Mark sort of mentioned as well. And yeah, just give you some ideas that you might be able to put into your climate action plan and to help with the decarbonisation of your estate. The plug, always have to do a plug for us. So yeah, we are Let's Go Zero, the national campaign for all schools, colleges and nurseries to be carbon zero by 2030. So we have got, I think, yeah, it blows my mind to think over 8,000 schools are now signed up to the campaign nationally, which is great. And we take those voices, your voices and your action and support and the will that you have to take climate action. We go to Parliament, we go to the DfE, we go to county councils, district councils, big companies, organisations. We work with lots of partners and sort of drive policy change and celebrate the climate action and get support for you to be able to take more climate action, because you're doing a phenomenal job already, and but unfortunately there's still a lot to do. So yeah, you need all the help you can get on top of everything else you need. So if you haven't already, please consider signing up, because it really helps us as well. There's the plug, sorry. So I am going to talk about, briefly look at energy, not very much because Mark's covered that already. And then I shall waffle on about a little bit about waste, food, transport and procurement. But then you'll see hopefully how some of these things also merge and have co-benefits for the other areas in your climate action plan. So just things to keep in mind as you're developing that. So the energy stuff, yeah, pretty much a lot of the stuff Mark sort of said, mentioned anyway. I will double down on the optimizing your heating controls. We've seen some fantastic savings from these, both carbon and cost, and in a time when your school budgets are precarious, then they're a really good way of making savings there. And oh no, I should have taken the solar for school stuff out. But there are other things for solar as well. And lots of opportunity to get pupils involved, which I think is really good. One thing I will just mention is the Energy Spark stuff, which monitoring your data is really good. And that links to my example that I was going to show you from a school in Great Yarmouth. But just monitoring your system, I think a lot of you may have access to Sigma. And actually, Mark, what would be really good, I think, is some guidance on how people can use Sigma, how business managers and school staff can use Sigma to be able to generate the best reports. Because I've had a look at that with some schools and it's a bit complicated. So some guidance on that would be really good for that.
That might have to be a follow-up session possibly, but
yeah, definitely.
One thing I didn't mention is I'm currently in charge of looking after the Virtus Energy side from the in terms of the contract. So happy to hear about Sigma. I have access myself and I do use it, and I can offer a few hints and tips. But anyway, sorry, I went into.
No, perfect. That's great. Thank you. So yeah. And then just an example from a school I'm working with in Great Yarmouth. So St Nicholas Primary didn't have any control over their heating system at all when the new business manager came in. So working with the diocese, they managed to sort of get control of that using Energy Sparks as well. So the diocese kindly paid for them to have access to that. But I will say it's always worth looking at the Energy Sparks website, just because they have lots of free activities that you can do. So you don't have to sign up to it. You can just go on there, browse the activities and take the ideas down. So a sneaky tip there if you don't want to pay. But yeah, it's a really, really good tool, and the pupil dashboard is really good, which is why we sort of promote it a lot, because it's a really useful tool in lots of different ways. But yeah, when the business manager got hold of that and started looking at the data and had access to all those the heating controls and stuff, they saved nearly 10 grand in the first 12 months. So that's a phenomenal saving. So yeah, it is really, really worth. Two things: sign up to us, and yeah, get on top of your boiler system. Even if you have to then pay somebody to come in and do it for you, I think the savings, and as Mark alluded to it as well, the savings will far outstrip the outlay. So yeah, well worth doing. So just in terms of the other areas, so looking at food, and again, this can be a little bit tricky if you've got contracted catering companies that come and do this for you, but a lot of them have a sustainability policy. So they should be looking at ways to reduce their waste and energy consumption. And they'll often say, oh, well, we use local providers. So, you know, have a conversation with them about what that is and see how you can help them and how they can help you. ProVeg, if you've not come across them, a really useful organization. They will happily check your go through the menu and just see how planet friendly it is, and give little tips on how it can be tweaked. So whether that's even just format changing, so rather than the meat meal being always the first one, it's actually giving parity to the planet friendly options as well. Increasing the number of planet friendly options on your menu, or having a meat-free day, or increasing that number of meat-free days is a really good one, because a lot of emissions are tied up with raising cattle, especially beef. And yeah, so reducing our meat consumption is a really, really key one. Weighing food waste in the kitchen, so reducing your food waste is really important as well. And I've got a nice case study about that in a moment. And then if you've already got composting, or improving your composting, starting that, especially helpful if you've got growing areas as well, so you can use your own compost onto that. And in Suffolk, you have got master composters. When they're not busy, these volunteers can come and help you with that, and they're really good. So yeah, some quick food ones there. In terms of procurement, and a lot of these you'll be doing anyway, but there might just be tweaks you can do, or some hopefully that you might not have considered yet, or haven't had the time to consider yet. But developing uniform exchanges, really good one. A lot of schools are starting to move away from second hand, because there's still a sort of a stigma attached to that. So we're getting a lot more pre-loved or new to you, which I quite like. And some schools are setting up things like Minted, where pupils and students run the uniform exchange and raise money for other projects that they want to do in the school. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. Reduce branding on your uniform, another school item. So lots of schools are already doing this and making the logos optional, which is really good. So then those items of clothing can be used for other things, passed on and used elsewhere, which is really good. So yeah, having a look at that. Follow sustainable practices when choosing products. Can be quite a tricky one depending on how your procurement policy is set out, but it's just having sustainability as a consideration. So thinking about ethical products, you know, where they're made, how they're made, what materials they're made from, can they be recycled or reused easily? Yeah, having some kind of procurement or sustainability consideration in your procurement. So whether that's conversations with the trusts or a federation level, with that to kind of build that in. And lots of companies now, so if you use ESPO, they have a conscious choice range. So it has got more sustainable items that you can select. And even just things like if you purchase things from Amazon, so actually instead of all the staff ordering their own things independently and getting them delivered individually, coordinating that centrally and just having bulk deliveries and bulk purchases cuts down on packaging, and then the transportation of delivering that and cutting the emissions from that. And I kind of, yeah, that sort of would also include energy efficiency in new equipment. And sometimes it might be a little bit more cost, but actually longer term savings and just reduction in carbon are really beneficial. Not going to happen all the time, but sustainability over cost, because budgets are so tight. But it's just the fact that it's been a consideration in those decisions, I think, is really key. So the food waste focus. So this primary school decided to weigh their waste. So the eco team weighed their food waste every day for a week, displayed it up on the board, did a lot of communications about it, and assemblies and things, and then repeated it a term later, and they made a 40% saving just in those few months they'd done that. So that's really good. Also, for me, my biggest takeaway was that the pupils preferred fish fingers to fish cakes. So there's a top tip if you want that one. So that's really nice. And then this primary school, the site manager and the cleaners decided to go to a more sustainable cleaning range. So they buy their chemicals, and well, yes, they are chemicals, but they're less chemicals than they were. But they get larger concentrated or containers with concentrated product in, and then dilute it into spray bottles and reuse them. So they're really happy with the quality. It reduced the plastic use. The chemicals were nasty chemicals were reduced as well, and it was actually cheaper. So it was wins all round for that one. So that's really good there. In terms of waste, so carrying out bin audits. So the simpler recycling regulations came out in March. So just making sure that you're meeting those. And this is another really good project to get pupils involved with, as they quite like looking in bins and seeing what waste has been thrown there, which ones are in the wrong bin. And then you can use that data to then provide education about the importance of reducing, reusing, recycling, and also, what were the other ones? Repair, rethink, and refuse as well. So start to bring some of that thinking in as well. You know, do we need these things? Actually, is there a repair cafe that we could take this broken item to, and if it can get repaired, that kind of thing. So that's really good, and there's some really good programs like Waste Bust and Recycle Now have some really good resources that you can use for that. Linked to that, sort of single-use plastics and reducing that. So plastic-free schools are really good, and plastic clever schools. So just thinking about how you can reduce single-use plastics, and actually catering teams and companies are quite good at helping with this one. And then another one that's sort of growing actually is a really good one, is establishing procedures for sort of reusing school supplies at the end of terms or just in general. So whether that's within a federation or a cohort or a trust, just putting in mechanisms to start swapping equipment that you don't use anymore, or resources. At a national level, we've got like the school resource exchange. So you could buy furniture or swap furniture with a school in Hull if you wanted to, if it was cheaper and better than getting it elsewhere. So yes, you can swap, buy and sell stuff on there. So that's really good. I'm flying through these, so I apologize a bit in that. And I can't see any questions, so I'll answer them in a moment, if there are any. In terms of transport, so running active travel campaigns and sort of linking that to an active travel plan. So the big walk and wheel events, doing that annually are really good. I think the council can help you with mode shift stars and sort of create your active travel plan. And then part of that will be sort of building in cycling proficiency lessons to then, it would be good for adults. I don't know if adults can do bikeability, but yeah, just helping the pupils and students gain confidence on their bikes and actually being able to ride on the road and that kind of thing to kind of encourage that more active travel. And then sort of the other end of the scale, you've got install EV charging points. So there's funding for this from the government. Not every site will be, it will work with, but it works really well if you've got a car park that is open to the public, and you can then get them to use it when you're not using it, and you can reap the reward of when they buy it from you. And a bit like the solar panels, there's lots of different finance mechanisms for doing that. But yeah, and always sort of, again, with the solar stuff, it's read that small print and find out exactly what they're offering and what the terms and conditions are. But yeah, if you want to transition to an EV minibus, for example, or staff vehicles, then that's really a good one to do. In terms of just very quickly the sort of examples here. So this school decided to have a competition for recycling. So they got brightly coloured bins. I never knew they did bins in such amazing colours, but for each, and they represent each house in the school. And then they had a competition to see which house could raise the or get the most recycling, and then they were given house points. And there was also spot checks on reusable bottles. So when the pupils were stopped and had a spot check to see if they had a reusable bottle, if they did, they get a house point. And that was all sort of totted up, and there's a nice sort of competition there. So that was really nice. And then active travel, I really like these. So this is Milton Keynes Council worked with their schools to produce these active travel maps. So you can see there, so you've got the red is a 5-minute bubble for walking from school. The blue is 10 minutes, so how far 10 minutes you can walk to school. And it's got things like bus stops on there, the routes of the buses, parking restrictions, park and stride, those kinds of places. And this was shared on social media, the website, and outside on the school gates. So that's a really nice one there. I think that's all my blast through decarbonisation there. And then I think Becca just asked me to highlight some webinars that we have. So the central team put on some webinars, and then we've all been roped in to lead some and host some. So the first few are with my colleagues Paula and Sarah, and they've got Julie Murray, who's the head of food and health and safety from Educatorers, and Martin Skingley from ProVeg. They're talking about school meals and how to reduce waste and costs there. So that's on Tuesday, 2nd of December. We've got my colleagues Jeremy, Luciana, and John. I spelled his name wrong. It's Broderick, but that's on January the 20th, and that's looking at the building changes that make the biggest difference. So one of those spoilers will be the BMS system and optimizing your controls, but that'll be a really good one to go along to as well if you can. And then the last one, which didn't fit nicely onto that other screen because they've done it in a different format, but it's around green skills. So giving support for students to explore green skills and careers. And that's with my colleagues, Catherine Ockey and Laura Dempsey, who is from Gen Earth, and that's on the 4th of Feb. So yeah, if they sound interesting, then yeah, pop them in your diaries. And I think that's all from me. If you want to email me about any of that or climate action plans in general, whether you, hopefully you've all got one now, but if you haven't, I can help you with that. If you want me to review a climate action plan, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So you can get in touch through my email address, or on the Let's Go Zero link, you can go through Climate Action Advisor and you can request support there. I think that's it, Becca.
Fab. Thank you so much, Nigel. That was really helpful. I just want to add onto the webinar offer. Our next webinar will be on food.